This is McKay, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about what is living as a senior in a desert community really like. I hope you've had a chance to read my first blog or listen to the first one I did about senior living because this continues it on. After we sold that second home house to Jeannie and Norm, we still wanted to be with our friends and now our relatives because Jim's sister and her husband, Norm, bought that house that we were living in, the smaller house. So we decided to buy another house and still live on Dove Mountain. Well, a housing development, which was not 55 or over, but had mostly older people living there, was built, and it was only a mile away. When we were living in our smaller house, we had walked the lots in this development prior to construction and dreamed, but we thought, boy, we'd have to sell the San Diego house if we were to do this. Well, this was 2009, and the housing market had definitely taken a turn down. I was looking around on the internet just at houses to see if there was anything that we might want to buy and anything in that area. And I saw a house on the lot that we had most liked. I worked and worked to figure out how in the world we could swing it financially. I kept thinking, well, maybe if I take out a home equity loan or something like that. Well, long and short of it is we finally figured it out and did it. But now we had two mortgages. We lived there about a year, and we finally said, this is just too much money with two houses. And we still felt kind of guilty about being here and not over there when we were paying for upkeep on both. So we said, well, where do we really want to be? And we decided that we had more fun in Arizona. So we sold our San Diego house and we moved full-time to Arizona 1 year after we had bought the Arizona house. By this time, I had pretty much turned everything over to my son John on the McKay and Associates company, and I was still doing some traveling because now I was into just doing training and occasionally overseeing things at a high level on the company. But I didn't have the amount of travel, and I didn't have to be in San Diego anymore. Although, of course, we liked it when we were there. The house that we bought finally and had dreamed of was a big, pretty house. It was on a lake and a golf course, much like our other smaller house on Dove Mountain. There's a whole lot of green there. It's not all brown and ugly, like many people think. Yeah, it's hot in the summer, that's true. And about 50% of our neighborhood left in the summer for their winter house in the northern areas. But really, the heat never bothered me. I like it. Tucson's elevation is about 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Also, it's more in the mountains, so it isn't as hot as a bigger city like Phoenix, for example. We were about a mile from the Ritz-Carlton on Dove Mountain, which is a great place to visit and get the ambience of the area. You can look that up and get a better feel for what that area looks like. And I have to tell you, sunsets are magnificent. It's really hard to find a better sunset than Arizona. The other thing I think we loved were the monsoons. Everyone waited for a monsoon. And what is a monsoon? Well, it's a huge, drenching torrent of rain coming down with great lightning and thunder. And we love to sit out on the patio under the overhang and watch the monsoon rain. Well, that area of Tucson has a lot of dips in the side streets. So if you had a monsoon, you stayed away from the side streets because your car could get swept away in a dip in the road. Several people actually died from being caught in a street dip. Who would have ever known that? Unless you lived there. Well, we looked at this house and we bought the house, and it needed really quite a lot of work inside and outside at the time. But our friends, Max and Lyle, those are the people that we moved there to be across the street from initially, and they helped us with painting and, the many other things that we needed to do. The dining room, I remember, was painted dark purple, which I wanted to change because we were in the desert and I wanted to lighten it up. So Lyle got up on a ladder and painted the entire inside of the house for us. The back patio needed the most work. It was large and we had a smaller pool and outdoor kitchen, but almost all of that patio was dirt, just a little bit of concrete. So we did some things right and other things we learned from. But I think the question that most people have is, how do you shade a backyard or back patio? The Arizona sun can be pretty brutal. When we cemented the patio floor, we installed an Equinox shade cover, which I really would highly recommend for anybody where there's a lot of sun. This one was about 20 by 20 feet, and we were able to put it up before we poured the concrete so that the legs were in the concrete after the pour. You can look at what an Equinox is at equinoxroof.com if you want to consider something like that. What I liked about it is it had a louvered roof that you could open or close, and we installed screens that came up and down on two sides. So it was really great for entertaining. Originally, in addition to that, we installed sunsetter awnings for the rest of the patio of the house. The wind can really sweep through the desert, and we had to be sure that those awnings were up if the wind came up. We finally bought a couple that had a sensor, and they closed when the wind was too high. Those eventually wore out, not the sensors, the whole awning. And we installed a permanent structure, which gave us filtered sun and shade and was also great for entertaining. We also had a large set of windows in the living room. And the problem was that even though we had an indented patio right outside the living room, where it's an enclosure and kind of goes inside where the house is, even though we had that, the birds would fly into the windows. And really, it is not fun to find a dead bird or two on your couch outside. The solution that really worked for us was a shade that looked opaque from the outside, but you could see through it from the inside. And it had a remote control, so it was easy to put up and down. We had it installed by our Sunsetter rep, but I can't remember if it was a Sunsetter product or not. The other area that needed work was our swimming pool and jacuzzi. We had some resurfacing down, but even in Arizona, it was hard to get the water warm enough to swim. The swimming season wasn't really, I don't think, much different than when we lived in Minnesota. Pretty much, June maybe to the end of September, maybe a little bit in October, but not much at all. Well, I tried a solar cover for the winter, but the pool had a spill from the jacuzzi to the pool, and the water that spilled over went right onto the solar cover. So it was useless, and we finally took it down. Well, I like the water about 82 to 85 degrees. I know, I'm crazy, but I do. So we installed solar to heat the pool, and that really worked well. The only problem with solar is that you can get a leak in the solar pipes on the roof. And when there's a leak because it just pours down the side of the house. I always worried when we left the house for a period of time. So I ended up just turning it off if we were leaving for a couple of days. I could work the pool and the solar from my phone, so it wasn't hard to do. We also installed misters. Now, I wouldn't do that again. We had them across the back of the house for the length of the patio, but I don't think it's worth it. They can get everyone wet depending on how you have them positioned. And the motor noise isn't quiet, and really the biggest issue is that you have to unscrew all the heads and put them in, if I remember right, vinegar water for the winter. And if you strip a screw on the head, then the head is useless, and they're very hard to replace over time to find just the right ones. So I don't know, I wouldn't do it again. But you might have a better set and you may love it. Tucson's really a very friendly place to live. They're used to us old people and they don't honk at us if we go too slow usually, or we go over the line. Most of the streets are side streets to get almost anywhere except maybe the airport. The airport was about 45 minutes from where we lived because we lived on the northwest side and the airport was on the east side. Doctors are really plentiful and they're very good because they like that climate too, and it's not hard to entice them to live in the area. Well, we lived there for 12 years and we totally enjoyed it. Would I recommend having a house here in a heartbeat? Yes, I would. It was a terrific place to live and a great place to stay while we were there. If you really want to see some pictures, you can go to my blog at nanmckaykconnects.com and then go to blogs on the menu and go to lifestyle. And if you want to know why we moved from there, if I loved it so much, look at the next episode.